Hey there, welcome back to Boards 3D. For the first episode of the Try Maker tournament, today we're making the beer mug.
But Clever made two.
Well then, so did I. So, I'm back in my shop and I'm getting ready to get started on the Try Maker tournament. A few days ago I went and got all the materials that I need, well, that I think I will need. Those of you who are new to the channel will soon realize that I kind of wing it during most of my projects. This is no exception. So the first part of this tournament, the first competition or event, if you will, is going to be making a beer mug, something which I've been meaning to do for quite some time, and it's something that I've had trouble sort of getting to do in the past. We have no restriction on material, no restriction on tools to be used, so I'm going to play to my advantage. I'm going to be making the body of the beer mug made out of hardwood. I got beech. I couldn't find oak from my local supplier and I can't wait to get started on this, so beech will have to do. And I'm going to use leather to embellish it, and I think beeswax to coat the inside to make it waterproof. Now beeswax obviously will not withstand warm beverages, but since beer is best served cold, I mean, who drinks warm beer? And beeswax will just do the trick. I'm really stoked to get started on this project, and yeah, let's get to it. The idea is to take this half plank of beech wood and cut it down into strips. If I manage to get that straight enough, then I'll get I'll get an angle on the table saw and cut off the angles hopefully as accurately as possible. Now I don't have a digital angle finder, digital protractor, but I do have one of those foldable ones, so I'll just have to make do with what I have. At most, it just means more elbow grease is needed later on. In order to better handle the material, I decided to cut the plank into small boards. Whenever I'm cutting with the table saw, I always make sure to stay out of the way just in case the wood kicks back and would go flying behind me instead of into me. Once the boards were cut up, I ripped the panels into smaller fingers. These segments will eventually become the walls of the beer mug. Let me stop for a minute and just explain what happened right there. I had to buy lumber which was an inch thick. I bought 1 inch thick planks of beech, only because that was what was available at the merchant at the time. So I couldn't wait until another couple of weeks to get the oak that I wanted initially, so I had to make do with this lumber. I don't have a planer or a thicknesser, so I really couldn't thin the material well in the conventional means, let's just say that. So I cut them down into fingers, which was exactly what was planned, and then I had to cut them and rather rip them along the edge grain, which I had to do on my table, so I had to make do with what I have. Now here's the thing, here's the disclaimer, I wasn't completely comfortable doing that. I don't know whether it is safe enough to do it. Luckily I'm still all in one piece, but please be careful when using stuff like that. Always use eye protection. Just make sure that you're protected when using these kinds of power tools. They're very, very powerful and one needs to respect their power. So just be careful when doing something like that. Again, I don't think that was the right way to do things. It's just what occurred to me at the time. So onto the project. Now the way I'm going to build this beer mug basically is going to be a lot of these fingers, right, with an angle on either edge. So they'll be shaved off at the corner and it will adjoin to the next one, forming a polygon, really, a 15-sided polygon. Now to do that, again, I'm going to use probably my least favorite tool, the table saw once more. This project is going to be very table saw intensive. There are other means to do this. Definitely. You could definitely route out a 12-degree angle over here. You could use a bandsaw. You could use the sander. You could use any kind of other tool. You can also hand sand it or hand cut it. I just want a quick and effective way. Because while I love working with wood, what's coming after the wood is really what I'm after in this project. When all the fingers had been cut, angled properly and sanded flat, it was time to start the glue up and put the mug together. I sketched the shape of the handle that I wanted. This ended up being a bit too big for the end project, but this was trimmed later on. I cut it with a jigsaw using a very thin blade which allowed me to do very nice curves even on hardwood. After shaping the handle on the belt sander, making sure that all the marks were met, I routed the edges of the handle using my router and a round over bit. Using my Japanese razor saw, I cut the extra pieces of the mug in order to have a flat surface. I also tried to make an incline so that the mug somewhat reclines towards the handle, and then routed the edges again. I traced and cut out the profile for the bottom of the mug. I made sure to not go too close with the jigsaw so that I could shape it on my disc sander. After the glue dried, I spent a good couple of hours filling in all the gaps using wood filler and sanding everything smooth by hand. I drilled mating holes both in the handle and in the body of the mug so that later I could glue in a dowel to hold the handle in place while it dried. So it's a few days later from the last time I worked on this project. That was a few days ago. And I realized that it was best to stop and step back, think it through, and decide how to proceed with this beer mug. I had bought a huge piece of leather, which was at a very affordable price, but it doesn't tool very well. It could be that my tools are blunt, but I tried damping it in water. I tried dunking it completely. I tried tooling it with a stamp. It just doesn't cut so nicely, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm going to have to rethink this. So I've had an idea, however. This piece of leather, I really would not like to waste it. I've got other uses for the rest of the piece. That's fine. I'm not worried about that. But this piece, I really want to use it. So I thought instead of having one color of leather on it, perhaps I could have two. And I have this little piece of offcut from the very first piece of leather that I bought. And if you take a look, this is slightly longer than it needs to be, which is perfect. So I can cut a little bit extra. Goes around and wraps nicely. Well, it's actually going to be the other way, the other color behind. So I think that's a really nice contrast. I think that will do quite nicely. I can always stain it black if I see that it's not working. After I had sketched the runes on the vetched and leather, I carved them using my swivel knife and then eventually tooled them and textured them with a beveler and a backgrounder. For the beer mug's finish, I decided to use stung oil. This oil really brings out the grain in the wood. I used the double boiler method to melt some beeswax. Once it was completely melted with no visible particles, I poured it into the beer mug and swirled it around to coat the inside evenly. I stained the leather black using the leather dye, then punched holes for rivets, riveted together to the other piece of leather, punched holes in it so that I could stitch it, and stitched it to the beer mug using two curved needles, which made the job a bit easier.
Let me start concluding this video by saying that it has been an absolute pleasure organizing this event, this Trymaker tournament with Kit Clever from Skilltree and Eli from Geek Hobbies. The Trymaker tournament was organized so that the maker community would come together and sort of push each other through challenges, through making the projects that we've been trying to achieve but have never gone around to doing yet. For reasons, which may be limited skill, limited tools, or limited equipment. So it really pushed our boundaries and tested our limits in this case. This was such a challenge to make. It started off as a plank of beech, and I worked my way through it by cutting it into fingers, cutting the angles, gluing them together, making the handle, making the leather wrap, engraving and tooling the leather so that it reads Trymaker Tournament and Dwarven, and beeswax in the inside, and it works just fine, and it's my own, and I made it. And it makes me so happy that I made something like this, which was something that I've been meaning to do and I've never actually achieved before. And that is the whole point of the Trymaker Tournament, so that you would go out there, you see us making these projects, you can do these projects as well, and we encourage you to share these projects with us. We have a Discord channel which you can join and share your progress, share your projects, and always you can link them to our social medias, both myself and Clever and Eli's as well. Don't forget to check out Skilltree's video on his take of the beer mug for the Trymaker Tournament, and also check out Eli's Geek Out Hobbies video on the judgment. Like other projects before, this will eventually be on my website in the form of a write-up, detailed write-up on borscht3d.net. You will also find links to my social media pages, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, down in the description below. And to keep with the spirit of the Trymaker Tournament, just as I have been inspired by other makers out there to come in my shop and make something, hope that you too can make something as well, because everyone is a maker.